In a previous video, I made um, a notebook where we used PCA to identify component analysis of a portfolio consisting of healthcare stocks and gold stocks. And the result was that the gold stocks were much more affected by the components than the healthcare stocks, and you could clearly see a difference of grouping in that graph. But today I thought it might be more interesting to use the same exercise on crypto coins because the differences in the variances are a lot more subtle in some instances. I'm not the biggest crypto guy. I don't know a whole lot. I don't know the difference really between Binance coin and US dollar coin. Like I get that they represent different things, but this is just like taking a look at the market as a whole based on what I've seen on Y Finance. And I've obviously got some really big ones like Bitcoin, Ethereum. I know Doge is more of a meme coin, and Binance is a very popular platform. Um, XRP, I don't know what that does. US dollar is I'm just assuming it's the same thing as the dollar. Um, Sol, I don't know what that is, but we're going to take a look at each of these cryptocurrencies and perform a component analysis on it to visualize which factors affect the variances for each of these stocks. We're using three components and we're fitting it on our returns. The returns is just the percent change of our close for each of those crypto coins. Then we graph it. So what this is the contribution that each factor has and the total percentage of variance here. So the first factor contains the greatest contribution, and this is the cumulative effect of stacking each of these factors on top of each other. So when we take into account these three factors, we have just above 80%, close to 90% of the variance in returns there. So that's what's really positive about the PCA is that when we pass through our returns here, we can really parse out factors that contribute to variances in the returns there for um, between each coin. This is always the cell I have the most difficult time explaining, but we are taking the returns and we are also taking our components and we are mapping on the dates to the components as the returns. So these are the returns taking into consideration the factor for this date on this factor here, right? So um, when we're not looking at the stocks anymore, we're just looking at the date and the factor component and what the return variance is here for that. And this is getting our exposure to those factors and the returns of the coin here. So this is like um, the for factor one on Binance coin, we get this return here. Two, we get that, et cetera, et cetera. So this is like our exposure to this factor for this coin, exposure to that factor, exposure to this factor. So these aren't returns, but our exposure to the factors for each coin here. And that's useful because when we go to plot it, you can see that when we take a look at factor 2 versus factor 1, we can see that XRP has big exposure to both of these factors, whereas Doge and Solana have large exposure to the first factor, but negative exposure to the second factor. US dollar coin has no exposure to either of these factors, and this is um, doesn't have much exposure to the second factor, but sort of in the middle ground for this first factor here. One of the things I don't really like about um, PCA analysis is that this is great. It's like, okay, cool. So we have XRP, we have Doge and Solana having big exposure to these factors, but what are these factors? I don't know. So you could maybe do something where you test um, each of these coins based on this factor exposure and try to hedge it. Um, you could draw up some hypothesis idea of what these factors are and then try to um, hedge that factor once you've done some kind of correlation to different variables in the market that might expose to that factor. I think this is where you would need to know like what is it, what is XRP? I have no idea what XRP is or what it does. So in this instance, if I was serious about trying to understand what I'm looking at, I would go and learn about XRP and see what makes it different from something like US dollar coin, or I'd see what makes it different from, US dollar, this Doge or Solana or Binance coin here. You kind of get the sense like Binance, Bitcoin, and Ethereum, from my understanding, these are like the big three coins that you invest in, right? So it kind of makes sense that these are grouped together. Why is Doge and Solana grouped together? Why is XRP way out here on its own? These are the questions that I would try to answer. And if you know in the comments, please feel free to let me know what your thoughts are. Maybe we can build off of it, because there's clearly a grouping here that would be interesting to investigate. But yeah, that's principal component analysis. I really like this, um, sort of how it's displayed here. It's really easy to plug and play different assets or different symbols that you want to look at here, and try to find, um, try to hypothesize what the factors might be. And also just see the relationship between these, because for someone like me who has no idea what the relationship of these coins are to one another, this graph gives me some idea of what the relationship is. Like there's actually a pretty close relationship here between Doge and Solana, and I have no idea why. So that might be something to look into. Anyway, if you found this useful, I have this link here. You can download this notebook in the description. And if you feel inclined to support me, you can head on over to this link. It's like a tip jar or a donation bucket where you can make a one-time donation of any amount that you feel inclined to. It really helps me avoid needing sponsorships and avoid building a course and then trying to sell you on a course and going down that route. I'd really like to just keep this pretty chill. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.